Okay, so we are starting recording now. And I would urge you, if you are here, to just say hello in the chat box. And if you could, first off, make sure that everything's taken care of where you're at. Your mic button should be muted. And if the chat box is not open, just scroll at the bottom of the screen. You'll be able to find it there to open it up. So if you could do that and click. When you've done that, just say hello. And of course, take care of any last minute emails, turn off your phone, and bring the focus to the class today. And if you didn't know, Zoom will automatically show your live image through the computer camera. So if you don't want that to happen, you can just scroll down and put the stop video, click stop video. So just to let you know where you are, we are starting off the How to Get Exposure as a Go-To Expert. And although it's going to be material that is similar to other webinars and courses that I do, today we are really going to focus on how you can present yourself as an expert in your field. So a little bit of housekeeping. Hopefully you can hear me. If you can, and if you're around, then just click in the chat box and let me know that. As I mentioned, put your mic on mute. There's going to be a lot of material today, so I would really suggest you grab a notebook to take some notes or open up a file. Close Facebook and log out and turn off the phone. A lot of times people are kind of walking around doing other things, thinking that they're going to maybe watch the webinar later, and maybe you will, but a lot of times we don't do that. So why not just focus on it now? It's going to be just about an hour and questions afterwards. And of course, please stay to the end. I'm going to have some bonus giveaways and more information on what I've created in the context of all this work called the Media Mastery System. If you want to learn about me, any more about me, I tend not to take a long time on my background, because when I watch webinars, I personally don't like to listen to somebody talk about themselves for that extended amount of time. But if you are interested and you want to get some more information, just go to my LinkedIn site, LinkedIn at Bela Lazarus. Just to give you a tiny bit of background, though, if you're wondering why you should listen to me at all, I started my media work on the production side of CBC Television in Montreal, as well as CBC Radio, where I was an associate producer. And I worked at radio in Edmonton and Vancouver. And then I started working in newspapers and magazines, have a couple of home decor magazines, as well as I started into some of the business papers, Right Course, Western Investor. These were business magazines, as well as biotech. I did a lot of work in sustainability, writing and editing. Meeting Places magazine, that's a great magazine if you are related at all to the events industry or to event planning or hospitality and tourism, restaurants, destination tourist resorts, anything that's good for corporate meetings. This is where you want to be, Meeting Places magazine. And a couple of other publications that I was editing, and most recently at Business in Vancouver, I was covering the production of these sections. They were special sections. I was the features editor, and this is just a few of the examples of the special sections that I was working on. So after I did that, I started plying my trade at a variety of groups around the city, and essentially what I do now is present in person down at Small Business BC. I do one-on-one consultation. I have mass media mastery sessions, full day, half day, weekends, and courses as well, where I'm doing ongoing coursework. Now, this is where the point where I'm supposed to come in with my clients' success stories. So hopefully there'll be enough information from the testimonials on my website that you won't have to actually listen to an extensive amount from me. Because again, I think that it's probably better you heard them from the people who went through the experience as opposed to me talking to them. And that way there'd be more time for us to spend on actually learning about media outreach today. There is one testimonial I really like, though, and that's from somebody who took one of my earlier workshops, who worked at, in securities, online securities. And he actually used my methodology to become seen as an expert on in a website. So it wasn't exactly a magazine. It was simply a website that was a kind of collector site for all sorts of information that dealt with online security. And so, as he says here, their target buyers were reading this website. And he used the strategy in the outreach, the emails that I create, the templates that I create, to reach out. Took him 2 days, talked about a breaking news story, and they were on the front page of the website. So just to show it works not only for traditional media, but anytime you want to get your story in an independent source. So a couple of things that I'm going to hand out at the end of this little show today. These are samples of media editorial planning calendars, and I'm going to be talking about these things a little later on in the webinar. But this is research that I've done already, put together these packages of press kits and editorial calendars so that you don't have to, so that the work is already done for you, and that's going to be one gift at the end. And then my second gift is going to be email pitch templates. So there are going to be samples and templates you can use for story pitches, press releases, expert advice columns, and book releases. Again, I will tell you how to get those at the end. So the media mastery system that I developed, here's why I want to talk about that. First of all, as we launch into the information today, you're going to get a really good plethora of secrets and ideas and instruction, and it's going to be really valuable, but it's still just a start. So my media mastery system actually is composed of 5 steps, all of it encompassed by your own strategy. So a lot of what we talk about at the beginning of the system is, what do you really want to get out of media? What are your goals and what's your timeline for it? Because some people might have a desire just to promote an event or a book launch or something like that in a short time period, and that's all. And that's great. We can actually talk about that. You might want to have ongoing outreach so that you are contacted on a regular basis. That's a different kind of strategy. But no matter what your strategy is, you have to cover these bases. What your offer is, what's going to make a good story, what media sees as a good story, where do you want to be, what you're going to be putting in a media pitch, who do you want to send it to, and how do you follow up? These are the essential 5 steps of what I've developed for the system. Today, we're really going to focus on what you're going to put in a media pitch. And so that encompasses explaining what you actually have as a good story, like in number 1 here, but as well, how are you going to relate that to the editor or producer of your choice? So why don't we get started? Okay, so just to give you an idea of how the information flows, generally we have 5 sources. By we, I'm talking about whether we're talking editors, producers, or online publishers. I might use the word editor or producer interchangeably. Essentially, editors are for print or online magazines. Producers are for broadcast, whether it's radio or television. And online publishers I refer to as those people who have websites that relate to your category. So first off, we get direct emails from the public. So that would be like people such as yourselves putting together an email pitch and telling media that you're out there, or telling them that you have an event. In some way, you're basically trying to get connected. The public might connect through a journalist, or the journalist directly would give information to the editor, producer, or online publisher. And a client might hire a PR company. So if you're a public company and you actually want somebody else to do all the work for you, beginning to end, you might hire a PR company, which of course is quite expensive. And then other places we will get information directly from the internet. just browsing or getting news alerts and so on. So what I'm going to focus on today is really applicable for these first three and the last one. I'm not going to discuss the methodology for how a client uses a PR company. But what I teach today is actually applicable if you do go out and hire a PR company, because it'll give you more information to be able to speak to them about how you want your strategy to go. So this is essentially what started me off on my quest to help entrepreneurs. This was a pitch that I got while I was at Business of Vancouver, and you could see there's a lot of text in there. And this is somebody that I knew. He was a local entrepreneur, and I just thought, you know what? This is not good. I mean, here's somebody who has a good event, and they are limited in the outreach they can get or the reaction they can get because of their pitch. Because as an editor with a lot of things coming into my inbox, this is not something I want to read. This is just too heavy on text. And one of the things that I'll talk about today is just how important it is to get those emails down to very concise formats. So I talked to him and I said, look, I will redo your press release for you if you let me use it as a kind of bad example. And that's what he did. And surprisingly, we're still friends to this day. So I'd like you to consider, where are you at in your media outreach? If you are live today, you can actually put some comments in the chat box, whether you've never tried to reach out to media, you've tried but you've gotten no results, you've gotten some results but you want more consistent response, or maybe you're just hiding under your sofa. So if you wanted to connect either through the chat box, or if you're watching this as a recording, you can connect with me through my email, which is on the slide. So here's some information on why you want to access media, because of course, you're either in the camp understanding this is what media can do, or you might be struggling with kind of asking yourself, well, how can I really leverage media? So media will bring you a lot of free publicity. That's number one, because unless you're paying for a PR company, if your outreach is directly to media and you get coverage, that's free. It gives you brand recognition and credibility because it's an independent source. You can have access to tens of thousands of potential clients, and they could be targeted because if you address your information through the correct media outlet whose readers could be your potential clients, then you're leveraging it within your marketing. So you can actually be in front of tens of thousands of potential clients. Media feeds on itself. So what that means is if I'm a radio producer and I'm looking for stories that I might want to do live on a noon show, I'm probably going to be reading the morning papers to see what news item broke that I could follow up with and get some experts on. So a good example is if there's a news item breaks about something in the health industry, I might want to have a doctor on as an expert. Or a news item breaks in the food industry, maybe some sort of, superfood is announced. I'm going to want to get an opinion from a dietitian. So knowing what the news items are in the morning papers can actually help you pitch yourself as an expert. But it's also understanding that somebody on radio will read what's in newspapers, and people in newspapers are watching what's on television and looking at magazines of all kinds. So you can leverage media by even getting into something that's smaller and leveraging it to get into something that's bigger and so on. Because sometimes it's very hard to jump right into a major newscast or a major TV show or a national publication. Finally, media exposure can lead to direct purchases. So having your information about your expertise in a column or magazine where you are explaining what you do can easily have people stop, look at it, and see you as a potential solution for their problem. This is a quote I love, of course, because it promotes what I do, from Manjit Minhas, who's a Canadian entrepreneur and one of the dragons on the Dragon's Den, basically telling one of the people in the den, newspaper coverage is the best type of advertising. And why is that? Because of the credibility it provides. If you think about Anybody can talk about themselves on a blog. Anybody can talk about themselves on Twitter and say, hey, look at this, I'm doing this and it's really great. But it's not until you have a third party who acknowledges your expertise in an independent, objective way that your credibility is actually boosted. So maybe if you were somebody who was pitching a social media product and you had 100,000 followers in social media, okay, you know what? You've demonstrated credibility. But out of that realm, it's really hard for people to see, know, like, and trust you, especially that trust component, unless you actually get that independent coverage to show for it. So this is an example of one of my clients who essentially wanted to get some branding and exposure. And we worked only a few hours together over a course of several weeks. I helped her essentially understand where she wanted to be. We identified some spots for her. I guided her through the process of using the templates. Good templates are very good, but it really helps to have somebody sort of hold your hand through them. And at the end of it, she had 5 custom written media pitches, which she sent around to 5 media outlets. One of them was BC Business. Important for her because her area of expertise was around mentorship. And so she wanted to talk directly to people in the business arena. In this case, she was interviewed, so she didn't even have to write anything. It kind of looks like a column from the start, and it's called a department. So when you have a regular page that shows up every single issue, so DIY management shows up every single issue, it's generally referred to as a department. And this is an interview that was done with her from the editor of that page. And so she just had to answer questions. This got in front of 100,000 readers. This is the distribution for BC Business and exactly where she wanted to be. How long would it have taken her to reach 100,000? I haven't actually asked her that. And in fact, it doesn't matter. Ask yourself, how long would it take you to get to 100,000 people reading a post of yours? So if you put something up in LinkedIn, how long before 100,000 people saw it? I think you can see the benefit of spending a few hours focusing on people that are interested in your product, as opposed to spending hours and hours and hours every week and kind of spinning your wheels. So ask yourself, what do you value in media outreach? What is it that you see for yourself? Be it a television interview, a full-page article in a magazine, an interview on a website, whatever it is that you see yourself in. If you are on the live discussion, please post it in the chat box. So now I want to run down something really important. And if you've walked away from your computer at this point, I would come back and pay attention here, because this is really going to open up a lot of ideas for people. So first off, I break down your expertise into 2 areas. The one is what you know about yourself, your service, your ability, or product. Why did you get into your business? I mean, that whatever you're selling, whatever you're presenting, this falls within this first area. The second area, though, is something that a lot of people miss, and that is, what did you learn putting together your business? What did you learn from business operations? And that could be HR, it can be client resource management, it could be hiring and firing, it could be where to find a good location for a chocolate store. You know, every person learns something, whether it's branding or working with colleagues, or, you know, a good routine. What's your morning routine? What's your leadership routine? There are thousands of different topics that people are interested in knowing about. You know, what you're on here today, you're learning about media. What do you have something to teach around business operations? You don't have to be an absolute professional expert in this realm. It's a little different. As long as you've learned something, you can actually provide that information in transferable lessons so that other people who are interested in that topic can learn it also. So let's go down each one. So talking first about your service or product is the very basics. How does it work? What stands out when you talk about it? What's different? Some questions you can ask yourself: what surprises people when you talk about your business? And what can you offer that's new or different? Here's an example of expertise in client resource management. So this was somebody who identified a niche that he wanted to focus on for a particular column. So this particular column was focused on CRM for small business. He knows how to deal with CRM for any kind of size business, but by focusing his column and his expertise on CRM for small business, this could now be pitched into a section called Small Business Week or Small Business Month, depending on which publication you were pitching to. That, by the way, if you were to buy an ad, would cost you $3,500. So if you bought an ad that size and put whatever you wanted, you could put the same column in there, it would cost you $3,500. Here's another example that actually combines different criteria that we talked about. So in this one, this is a story that I did on food trucks. So in that story, you would see somebody who has knowledge about products, knowledge about operations, and connection to a recent trend. So again, always think in terms of the different criteria. What can you apply your knowledge to? When we talk about an expertise on business operations, this is an example that I give about somebody I ran into a networking event who turned out to be a massage therapist. And she actually talked to me a little bit about the problems and challenges she went through getting a good client management system. So when people signed in, so it's like her appointment calendar, to have a good sign-in process and then move those clients along in the system. So it turned out she had tried out 4 or 5 of them, and I said, okay, why don't you write a column for a business section that I'm editing. This was when I was at Business in Vancouver, where you talk about different appointment scheduling software. And if you do that, you will actually be helping other people to understand what the pros and cons were of the different software you tried, and then why you chose the final one you did. And she ended up writing the column and getting it into the newspaper. And, you know, in her line of work, it doesn't matter if she's in a business to business or business to consumer paper. She was able to garner clients from either of them. So just having her name and recognition in whether or not she was talking specifically about massage or happens to be talking about her software that she found, she's elevating her brand and elevating her credibility. Here again is somebody who actually has a specific product, but the story that was written about him had to do with HR and dealing with business operations. So the Letter Shop was or is still a print company. It used to be downtown and now it's on the east side. And he's talking about branding and how the personal touch with the Letter Shop is what's key to what that really kept their brand popular. So as you can see by the banner on the left, this section was in small business and it was specifically about branding. So he gets his mug on the cover of the section and he gets his great logo from the Letter Shop. He gets to talk about what a great service they provide. He gets to basically give publicity for his company, all in the guise of a story on branding. So it's kind of like, I guess, what I could call the Trojan horse of media outreach, because you're sort of hiding the material that you want to talk about in terms of the quality of your product or service inside a different kind of story. Keep this in mind because it's a great way to get exposure when you otherwise might not have it. New and changing trends is always relevant. I want to point out very strongly, these people do not have to be superstars or international designers. These are local people that come on to television shows, even TV shows that have 100,000 or 150,000 viewers. And all they have to do is talk about their knowledge. So ask yourself, what do you see in the news? What are people talking about? Is there a pop culture connection? Can you connect your product with Kim Kardashian? I use that facetiously, but it's true. If a celebrity is using your product or something similar to your product, like in the realm of your product, then you can actually use it as a hook to pitch a story for your expertise. So if you remember, I mentioned earlier, a story might appear in the news in the morning, and then a radio producer might want to interview somebody connected to that story in the afternoon to kind of further the story. So if you imagine a story breaks, such and such celebrity has a brand new diet that they're on, and it's sweeping Hollywood, people are going to listen to that. A producer in the afternoon might want to speak to a nutritionist or a fitness instructor or somebody related to the health and fitness realm and say, hey, tell us about this. Does it really work? So they're not going to go and try and get big celebrities from Hollywood to be on the show, but they still want to talk about this story. So they will bring on people who are local experts, but they need to know that you exist. They need to know that you're out there. And that's what reaching out as an expert is all about. So in this slide, just take away what are some of the trends that impact or can be impacted by your business. New and changing trends can be a variety in one story. In this example, this tea guy was talking about 4 different trends that impacted the tea industry and, to be honest, was impacted by the tea industry. So your business might be impacted by a trend, but you also might be able to impact a trend, especially if you're in an area that's really growing. So this guy is actually able to educate his audience about, for example, the way herbal teas can help you sleep. So he might be contributing to growing a trend by adding to the information as opposed to having the trend necessarily impact him. But it becomes circular. Once the trend grows, his product grows, his brand grows, and then he's able to talk more about trends. Geographic or demographic criteria is also very important to know. So you might be interested to know that there are a lot of publications and broadcast media who are interested in focusing on business owners from particular regions. So for example, if Global Television were doing a story on the growth of small business in Surrey, and you were a small business operator in Surrey, that would be a fabulous place for you to be. And it wouldn't matter what your business is. It wouldn't matter if you're business to business or business to consumer. It wouldn't matter if you are a business consultant or a hairdresser or owning a shoe store. It wouldn't matter, because if you're in that geographic area, you could be interviewed as an expert in your field. In this particular story, we're looking at the demographics. This was for a magazine called Retirement Ready. And the story was just about people who were 50 and older who had started new businesses after the age of 50 and talking about the challenges that I had. So keep in mind, these aren't business experts in the sense that they've necessarily been in business for 50 years. All you had to know is that they started a business after the age of 50, and that made them eligible to be in. And guess what? They get photographs of them, they get photographs of the business, and they're able to talk about what their business is. Free publicity. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment to think about what this is. If you are live, post it in the chat box. Otherwise, just tell me what you think it is and how that relates to our story about expertise. So this is the niche or quirky content criteria. This is crickets and how they're being used in protein food. So if you have an expertise around a niche or quirky topic, you can actually provide advice or commentary to media about that topic. So if you owned a restaurant, if you were a nutritionist, if you were in the health or fitness industry, you might be interested in putting your name forward as an expert so that if they wanted to follow up on this story and get the opinion of an expert, they would actually contact you. Again, this is exactly like media feeding on itself. Metro comes out with a story, CBC Radio, somebody there reads it, they get a producer to say, hey, we need to find an expert nutritionist to talk about this. Who are they going to call? Are they going to call you? They might if they know you're out there. Okay, so you know what you have to offer. Perfect timing. Now what? First, I want to talk about editorial calendars. I mentioned these earlier, and these make it really easy to pitch an idea. These are calendars that are set out by the marketing, sales, and editing departments to create sections that can be sold to a variety of advertisers. So this is what they look like. In this case, you will see in the left-hand column, this is a list of lists. So each one of these is the top 10, top 20, top 25 lists. On the right-hand side, though, is a special section. And if you have an expertise that relates to one of these kinds of sections, you can actually pitch your expertise directly and increase your chance by like 100%, if that's possible. But seriously, when I was in charge of editing these sections, I would actually look through my email to see if was the word Asia mentioned, was the word human resources mentioned, or mining, or small business. If any of those were mentioned in the subject line, I automatically opened it up. So it's great value for you to know of these upcoming sections, or potentially it could be like a magazine. If you have a monthly magazine that deals with home decor, one month they might be devoting their whole magazine to kitchens. The next month might be sustainable construction. The next month might be patio ideas. So if you have an expertise, you want to pitch to that particular magazine. But either way, these are ideas that are set out in what they call the content calendar. So this is one of the free giveaways I have if you stay to the end. So here is now what you're going to put in your sample story pitch. This is the simplest way to start off using a template on which you're going to build. At the top, you're going to have the name of your company, yourself, your contact information. Really important to have at the top because, as you know, when people scan through their emails, very often all they see are a few lines at the top. So if I've come across your email and I'm trying to find you, as I scan through, I'm going to be looking for your contact information. I like to have it at the top. Then you have a summary of what you're actually about, 1 or 2 lines that tells the recipient who you are, what your firm does, what your company does. And if you are pitching for a specific magazine or a specific issue or section, let them know. Then you're going to go into point form about what your expertise is. Now, if you remember that email I showed you right at the beginning about and how much text there was, this is the opposite. This is taking out the text, making it clean, so that it's very obvious to me what your expertise is. This is so that if I need to speak to an expert in the realm of sustainable flooring, I know that I now have somebody to turn to because you have told me this is one of your expertise. You've given me your contact information. You've told me your background. There's credibility there, 14 years experience. This would be enough for me to decide that I would at least reach out to you if I were doing a story on sustainable flooring. Beyond that, you might have some ideas of news hooks. These are timely events, trendy events that indicate to the editor you want to run this story now because this hook is happening now. If you wait 2 or 3 months, it's going to be stale. Finally, at the bottom is where you put in, if you do have a high-res image and it's really, really interesting, put in a low-res attachment. Otherwise, if you're just offering some generic shots of yourself, torso, head and torso, or in front of buildings, then just indicate it in the email and don't put the actual attachment in. Also, it helps to say that you're available and you can be contacted 24/7 at your cell number. Don't worry, we're not going to be calling you at 3 in the morning. But you know, if you have a reporter, a producer, or editor working after hours, and it's 8, 9 o'clock at night, and they want to have somebody for an interview the next morning, they want to be able to contact somebody who's going to be readily available and answer their cell phone, so that when you actually connect, they're not going to be worried that they're going to get that voicemail box, from hell. They want to make sure that you're going to answer the phone. And if you tell them that you have a 24/7 cell number, that gives them more confidence that'll do that. And then at the bottom, you're going to put in your background information. This is where you can talk about why you started your business, how long you've been doing this kind of thing, any other relevant information. You could also put a bio here, and I would highly recommend a link to a media page. So on your site, you should often have a media page that goes over all your expertise. This is something that I deal with in my course. I have examples of it and can help you through designing one for yourself. And I do have people standing by who will help you actually put it together. They're web designers. So as long as you have the material, we can help you put up a media page in a very short amount of time. So here are a few things that the survey says. This is a survey from a couple of years ago that looked at 500 editors and journalists. And what they found out was 85%, not surprisingly, open email based on the subject line, in which you should only use 45 to 65 characters. Now, I devote an entire section of my course talking just about subject lines. There's so much to go into in that, and the thought process behind it, and you're probably aware this can be a craft, designing a proper subject line. Well, designing subject lines for things like email marketing are different from designing subject lines for media. Media needs to hear certain things in order to be interested, and it's got to be short. So it is an art form in and of itself. One thing that they did say is they didn't really care if their name was used in the subject line. So I suggest you leave the editor's name or producer's name out of the subject line to give you more space to use for other relevant information. As I mentioned, have a media page with a bio. That's really important because that helps editors and producers go right to the page with all the information, as opposed to clicking around your website to the about page, to the contact page. Have everything on one page so it makes it really easy for them to connect with you. You want to be able to pitch traditional and social as well. So when you're pitching information that might be valuable for a story, like an article, if you can demonstrate that you have video to go along with it, so it might be an interview or it might just be B-roll of your product, then let people know that it's available too. I have spoken with editors, online editors, who say, yeah, people have stories that they want to put online, but they don't really give us good social. So other supporting materials, video, photographs, anything that would make it more interactive. And finally, 88% wanted fewer than 200 words in the email. So I want you to think about what you're missing out on. So just going back to this column that I mentioned earlier, this is a guy who wanted to demonstrate his expertise in CRM. We probably spent a couple of hours for him to put together an email pitch to the editor of his choice, and he got a response within a couple of days. I mentioned earlier, the value of this space is $3,500, but as well, his information is now in front of 40,000 plus targeted readers. So I want to ask you, what's stopping you? If you have the idea that you'd like to be in media, you know already what it can do for you. Maybe you don't know where to start. It seems too broad. You're not really sure what the first step is, or it seems kind of complicated, or you've been thinking that you just can't do it yourself. Who's going to listen to you? You're a young startup. You don't know what material you would have. Essentially, what you're really being challenged with is needing guidance from somebody who's professional in this field. You need some sort of system that you could work through. That is where the Media Mastery System comes in, as I showed at the beginning of the webinar today. This is 5 steps to get you free publicity, whether you want coverage for your brand, your service, or product, whether you want to be in broadcast, TV, radio, in print, magazines, newspapers, on e-zines, or podcasts, wherever it is. So it's made up of 3 components. One is a program that creates a media-ready story pitch from concept to completion, where you actually send it out to media. We go over an overview of how media works. We get clear on what your story is. The material enables you to select the right media for you. You'll understand how to write perfect pitches, how to do the first contact, and follow-up. So component 1 is the content of the program. Component 2 is actually live training. So this is delivery through weekly classes. Every single week you're learning new material. You have options for Q&A. You're sent away with homework, and you have to complete a specific action or task by the following week. And every week I look at the work from previous students and I do a kind of one-to-one coaching. I use it as an example so everybody can see how the exercise is to be done. And the final component 3 is access to a support group. This is lifetime access. These are people who are graduates. They've gone through media mastery training. Some of them are in PR. They answer questions. It's a great place for you to post questions, where you might want to post your homework for feedback. And it's a perfect place to keep you accountable, because I go in there every day to watch and see what people are doing. And if I've assigned homework and you haven't done it, I'm going to be on your case. I also include a couple of bonuses. So first off, while you may receive email templates through the course, the guidance that comes with using the email templates. So this is something that's not really part and parcel of the instruction. We go over how to set up a good email. But if you want specific guidance on a specific type of template that you know works for you, then you get that one-on-one guidance. I also have a series that I set up for Facebook Challenge, which was called 7 Steps to a Perfect Media Pitch. 7 video media series, that's going to be included. And finally, a 3-day Media Mastery Bootcamp. This is going to help for review as well as give you hands-on training. So here's the value of the system. I ended up breaking it down and asking myself, looking at my hourly rate as a PR strategist and what I would normally charge and what other PR companies would charge. And what I realized, the whole thing comes to almost, I think it's almost $11,000, certainly over $10,000. The 6-week program content has a $2,000 value. The training that I do week to week, that's 6 weeks, so that's a $3,000 value. The third component, which is the access to Lifetime Media Mastery Support Group, is a $2,000 value. And access to the templates and the bonus for 7 videos and the boot camp altogether is over $4,000. So we're looking at more than $4,000 of training. Sorry, $10,000 altogether. Now my program generally, when you look onto my website or you just find the rough value of it, the cost is $1,997. But I am in a testing phase. I'm going into my 2nd course that I'm delivering, and I've reduced that to $997 as a beta test phase. You can take that, 4 payments of $297. But exclusive for 72 hours. If you see this and you're interested and you know what media can do, I would jump on this right away. $597 covers everything that we saw before. It covers all the content, all the extra materials, the in-person, in online live coaching and live training, as well as the boot camp and the support group and any other support materials that you need. So you probably know that when you're in that sort of I don't really know phase, we're kind of hardwired to say, I think I'm out of here, and just kind of take the back door because it's a lot easier to take. But if you're really committed to going forward, then you have to take the next step, because when you commit, there is only one way to go. You don't have the option of going backwards, and I won't let you have the option of going backwards. To show you that I have absolute faith that this course is going to provide what I'm telling you it's going to provide, there's a money back guarantee. So as long as you say within 30 days, look, this doesn't deliver what it said it was going to deliver, 100% money back guarantee. Otherwise, $597 for 1 payment, or 3 payments of $219. So if you're interested, go to mediamastery.ca and get your money back guarantee course right now. If you have any questions, you can contact me at phase2coaching.com. For the first 5 people who sign up, I'm going to offer a $500 value personal strategy session. In this session, we're actually going to give you a jump start on the course. We're going to go over the material you need to know in terms of what kind of expertise you want to present to media, where you want to be, who you're going to talk to, how to put together the pitch, what to put the subject line. We're going to talk about as much as we can in 1 hour. And I'm going to make sure that you have things to start thinking about or working on before the course even starts. So once again, if you want to take advantage of the 10 email templates and samples giveaway, I would just ask that you send the answer to these questions. What was the most important message you took away from the training today, and what was missing you feel should have been included? Send it to Bela@phase2coaching.com, and I'll send you the website and password for your set of 10 email templates and samples. So that's it from me. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at that address. And best of luck to you in all your media outreach needs. Take care.